Welcome, everyone. Welcome,
Hi,
welcome.
everyone.
There we go. Everyone's joining in. I love it. Hey, you're welcome to have your videos on. We love being able to see you, which is fantastic. If you are eating lunch or something like that, that's totally fine as well. You don't have to have your video on, but we love being able to engage with you all. You will notice that you're all on mute for today for this training. It'll be Vera and I presenting today, which is great. Honestly, just so excited to be here. We're going to be getting underway very soon. Just as we gather, I would love everyone to share in the chat where you are in the world and what you do creatively or what you want to do creatively. If you can just pop that in the chat just as we get underway as well. Amazing. We've got a few more people joining us in as we speak, which is fantastic. So just popping in the chat, where are you and what do you do creatively? Now, I am actually in New Zealand right now, which is kind of funny because I don't spend that much time in New Zealand, even though I do have a Kiwi New Zealand accent. I'm from New Zealand originally, but I am actually here for a couple of months. I was just in North Carolina for Thanksgiving, which was amazing. Absolutely loved that. So yeah, connecting with everyone here is fantastic. Vera, whereabouts are you today? Do you want to share with the group as well?
I am in Montreal, which is my new home this year. I've moved here since from Toronto in June, and I'm enjoying the first winter in Montreal. It's
Amazing.
snowy.
It's so hard to imagine all the snow right now, Vera, because we were just talking about this before this call started. And
Yeah.
in New Zealand right now, it's summer. So those of you, a lot of people here, mostly in the Northern Hemisphere, that's very confusing, I know, but it is literally the start of summer in New Zealand, which means definitely no snow, maybe on the mountains right now, but none down on the streets here. So
What's the
amazing.
average temperature right now?
Oh, that's a good question. And I get confused between centigrade and Fahrenheit. So sorry for everyone in the US, but 25 degrees centigrade,
Oh,
which is
that's
pretty
nice.
pretty nice. We're gonna guess that there maybe is like 70 degrees Fahrenheit, more or less. So there we go. I don't know. My conversions get better over the years as I've spent more and more time in the
Yeah.
US. So I love it.
I can't
Awesome.
get used to Fahrenheit either. I'm always on Celsius.
I
Coming
think
from Europe, no surprise.
we're all just a bit confused about what temperature it is. So there we go. I
Yeah.
love it. Hey, so great to see everyone popping things in the chat. So if you've just joined us, pop in the chat where you are in the world and what you do. It's so good to see people being based in different places. Hey, Jessica in Sweden, amazing. Seattle there as well. Nikki, hey Nikki, amazing. Austin, Wheaton, there we go. There we go. NYC, amazing. Michigan, big range of places in there, and love that everyone's popping where they are and what they do as well. We're going to get into it. Let's dive in. So I'm going to hand over to you, Vera, so you can get us underway with today's webinar.
Sure. Well, firstly, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today. This is an awesome webinar. This is going to be an awesome webinar talking about a very specific topic that, I know that a lot of people are sort of like on a fence whether or not that's a good thing to do. We are going to be sharing, Logan and I will be sharing some actionable steps for you, and you will get to, of course, ask the questions at the end. We will try to answer as many as we can, but if we don't get to all of them, we are always available via email and DMs on Instagram. So I'm going to just briefly introduce myself. My name is Vera Drmanovski, and I'm a lettering artist and illustrator, currently based in Montreal, as I already said. I've been a freelancer for almost 2 years, and I've had the opportunity to work with Penguin Random House, the Bookish Box, I'll Create, Audible UK, AT&T, and many other clients. So as you can see, my list of clients kind of has something to get something in common, and that is basically that they're related to publishing. They're related to books, and I have done quite a few book covers in my career, and also lettering for book titles. I've worked on single book covers as well as the series. And apart from working on book covers, the other thing that also sort of ties me to the same niche is that I worked on quite a few bookish products with featuring famous quotes from books that are sold on some bookish websites such as t-shirts, blankets, house decorations, window stickers, coloring pages, etc. So it's safe to say that publishers and bookish companies are my niche. And how did I end up like sort of picking that niche. I think it has something to do with my upbringing and who I am and what I've been interested in my whole life. I come from family of scholars and teachers and librarians, so I've been around books my whole life. So I think that kind of sort of influenced me, maybe subconsciously. And while I was, developing my skills, and I went into that art direction sort of very naturally. But it wasn't that obvious how I ended up there. And it's only when Logan and I started working together that Logan kind of made me look into my business with different lenses. And that's when I saw what was quite obvious, to be honest with you, but sometimes it's not that easy to see until you work with someone who knows how to point you in the right direction. And that's how basically I ended up working mostly for the book publishing industry. I am very excited that Logan and I are here today to share the knowledge on this subject and to answer all your questions around it. I really loved working with you, Logan. And you know that because you've helped me, honestly, to hone in on my strengths and to realize what my secret sauce is. And to work what my target markets are around the niche and what I want to really do, like what is my passion and how I want to build my business around that passion. So who is Logan? Logan is, as I always say, probably the most famous business coach in creative community because his niche are us, like the creatives. We are the niche that Logan picked to help us build our business, start our business, and take our businesses to the next level. Logan has completed his entrepreneurship master's and started and grew his own creative business for 11 years. It was an incredible ride and he learned a lot from it. And now he is like, as he said, the good and the bad. And now he is like sharing that with us to help us bring our creative dreams into the world. In addition, he has worked with universities and creative programs all around the world with and helped creatives grow and learn. He has worked with probably hundreds, if not even more now, right? Creative people that are from graphic designers and other visual artists, muralists, illustrators, lettering artists, what have you. And I know a lot of people who have worked with Logan and throughout North America, Europe, and he really helped a lot of people grow their business and using the wealth of his business knowledge and his experience. He helped creatives leave their daily jobs. Some were that toxic, some really weren't, but their dreams was to have their own businesses, and he has helped them as well. He helped many people start from 1K and end up with 5K per month, even 25K per month. And honestly, since I've started working with Logan, well, I have to say my personal annual income has doubled since last year. So I think that's a cool thing. And thank you, Logan, for that. So without further ado, let's hear it from Logan.
Amazing. Honestly, so great to be here and great to be working with you on this call as well, Vera. Honestly, just such a delight. This niche that we've picked together, it's just so important that people lean in and figure this stuff out. And that's why we wanted to run this training. So those of you that are like, what do you even mean by picking a niche, or what does this look like? You're going to learn a ton about this, which is important. So just adding to a couple of things what Vera said. So those of you that are catching on pretty quickly is, yes, I've got a bit of a funny accent. I'm from New Zealand originally. Our business, Flame Entrepreneur, is actually registered in the US. But we work with clients, honestly, all over the world, a lot of people in the US, Canada, as well as through Europe, and occasionally other places as well. Surprisingly, we don't often tend to work with people in New Zealand. Occasionally we do, but that's just one of the ironies of this as well, even though I've got this interesting accent. So look, I love it. Hey, as Vera mentioned, my background, I had my own creative business for 11 years, and then eventually got more into the education stuff. It was something that I was already doing for many years, basically contracting to universities whilst running my creative business. And as Vera mentioned, this is my passion, is education, teaching, and helping visual creatives specifically. So the people that we tend to work with are kind of broken into 3 groups, more or less. Group 1, as Vera kind of mentioned, are like people that are like, hey, I have a day job. I may or may not love it, but I want to leave it. I maybe do a bit of something creative on the side, but I really want to grow that. So that's the first group. The second group are like, hey, I'm full-time on the business, or, you know, mostly full-time, maybe balancing with other commitments and family and part-time jobs, but I just want to grow this to be a sustainable thing. Right, so growing the revenue, also focusing in on my niche more, doing more of what I love, also helping you to grow personally and professionally as well. And I think, Vera, you probably fitted into more of that second group there, you know, when we first connected too. And then the third group are basically people with larger followings, primarily on Instagram. So about 10% of people we work with have over 10,000 followers on Instagram. Some of them you may all know of. We sometimes see those connections popping up as well. Most people we work with have much less than 10,000 followers on Instagram. There's lots of ways to build a business. Instagram's one of them. It's not the only one, but it is one area that people can focus on. So I love it. So that's a bit about me. And then the other thing I will mention is that I occasionally run creative business retreats as well, primarily in Europe occasionally. So there we go. It's a bit more background to add to it. Cool. One thing I will mention just before we get underway with the full training, you may have seen this in the emails and messages already. We are going to be giving away 3 freebie coaching calls with me. They're 30-minute calls. Would love to connect with people. It's really to understand where you're at, share some ideas, have a good discussion during that call. I'm going to drop right now in the chat a link, and this is a link to a survey that I would love you to fill in, right? I would love you to fill this in. It takes 5 to 10 minutes. You're going to get some great outcomes from just doing this survey. People say all the time, oh my goodness, like I learned so much from just filling that in. Also, that'll basically put you in the draw so that we can pick 3 of you to get on calls with me. We'll also get more of you on calls with Paul, who's our creative business specialist on my team. And he'll get on some calls with people as well to share some tips, ideas, see where you're at. And also, as part of that, we can see whether we can help beyond that initial call as well, which is good. So do check it out. Even if you're not sure if that's for you, do the survey, because you're going to learn something from it anyway, which is really important. Amazing. Okay, cool. So we'll make sure we share that in the recording later in the emails and things too, but do make sure you pop that link open now if you're here live on the call too. Okay, great topic. I absolutely love this one basically around niches and really focusing on, okay, well, what is it that you want to do and how do you define your niche? Now, you're hearing me say the word niche. I think you say it the same way as me, Vera. Niche, same thing, right? Those of you maybe in the US might think of it differently, different parts of the world. Niche. It's really the thing that you do within your business. And there's kind of different ways to think about it. Yes, it's what you're physically offering, right? So Vera mentioned she does book covers, is something that she has done and continues to do. That is one of her areas. Now, obviously, that's in a wider area of publishing, as she mentioned. These are all niches. These are all niches we're talking about, whether we talk about book covers, whether we talk about publishing industry. We can also get into referencing the types of clients. That can be a client niche. That can get into it as well. Who are the types of organizations or the types of individuals that you work with as well. So that's just a reference point for everyone to think about today as we go through this training. And we're going to really dive into how to define your niche. And this is something that absolutely, Vera, you're very clear on. I know when we started working together, you were less clear on that. You're already doing some of these things, but it was really that clarity and that focus, and also really focusing that in. We've been sent a few good questions already, but we will have time for Q&A at the end as well. So feel free to pop things in the chat as we get towards the end of the call, if you've got questions that you want us to dive into. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is this idea of spotting needs and problems. Spotting needs and problems. Now, what often happens for creative people is that you're a creative person, you can do creative things. That's fantastic. And you've got a passion, amazing. You love to draw, you love to create, you love to paint, whatever it is that you do visual creatively, that's the thing that you love. And that's often the thing that you want to do and get out to the world. And we hear people say that as, Logan, I just want to draw. I just want to get my creativity out there. I want to paint. I want to do these things here. And that's amazing. What we need to do is we need to pair that with needs and problems that need to be solved in the world, right? Creativity is a beautiful thing for sure. And there's nothing wrong with creativity for creativity's sake. Having our own personal projects, creating our spare time. Creativity is so great for wellness. If we want to build a creative business, then we've got to make sure we're pairing that with needs and problems and opportunities. And I think as soon as I say the word problem or solving problems or solving challenges, that's kind of hard. A lot of people struggle with that. It's like, well, wait a minute, you're not, like, is art solving problems? And I'm like, well, it is. It definitely is. Like, I think it's one of the most beautiful things in the world is creativity and art. But we've often got to flip our thinking around to getting to think about what is it that's needed? What are the problems in the world that are needed? What is the value that can be created here? So maybe if you have challenges with the idea of problems, solving problems, you can think about needs. What are the needs that people have? Because in the end, if you're going to sell something, people obviously need to pay you. And the reason they're going to pay you is because they value what they do. They have a need. They have something that needs to be fulfilled. Right. So just want to be very clear on that. And as I said, often people do need to flip their thinking around and go from, hey, here's my creative passion and purpose, to, okay, what is the need that I can fulfill using my creative abilities? And it's not always going to be perfectly aligned. You might say, well, here's the things I would love to do. We've got to make sure that matches with an industry need. And sometimes it takes a while to figure out. And this is what we're talking about today, is defining that niche as well. In the end, you've got to find people that value what you do. Right? That's what it comes down to. And sometimes that involves you pivoting what you do. Right? That can be part of it as well. And, look, sometimes an easy way to think about it is find people that have problems and needs and then figure out, have you got solutions for them? Can you use your creative skill set to solve those things? Often what people do instead, which is pretty normal, is I have this creative skill set. Now I've got to find a need. I've got to go out there. Who needs this thing that I offer? It's kind of almost harder to do that because sometimes you're searching and it's not a perfect match. So just want you to be very, very aware of these two sides of creativity as well. Vera, would love to hear your thoughts around this. I know your journey's been a big one around this stuff too. So yeah, love to hear what your thoughts are on this idea of spotting needs and problems.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was struggling with in the beginning. Like, what are the needs? Like, there's so many things, especially because I came from working with a company where I sort of had so many different tasks to tackle. I was doing stuff from the typical graphic design to multimedia to like so many things. So I was thinking, okay, this is what I need to do in my business as well. Like, just open up so many doors and, let people come in. But then that became, like, I think, too confusing for everyone and probably for me as well. So the fact that I needed to figure out what exactly are the problems that I want to solve, so to narrow down, was one of the hardest tasks to do. But as you said, like, it's something that when we started to work together on the program, like, we kind of like looked at what I have already done, also all my skills that I have, and I have like really that's something to do with like the fact that I have so many different skills was also making it really hard for me to pick, okay, this is the skill I want to kind of like just focus and like push forward. Even though I knew that I wanted to be a lettering artist, it still had it was still too broad, right? So I needed to narrow down. So definitely like thinking about what my skills are, and then who are the people who need those skills, and what is it that I want to do. So definitely like just finding the target market that actually is going to value what I do and what my strengths are, was something that you helped me honestly with the program. I don't know if I would be able to do it without the program, because I needed that clarity, like how to look into, as you said, like those are not the problems. Like, it was really hard for me to also wrap my brain around the problem. Like, I'm not solving anyone's problem. But then when you think about it, somebody needs a book cover. I can do a book cover. They have a problem because they don't have a book cover. I have a skill that can solve that problem. So basically, yes, that was kind of like, solving the problem. So that's kind of like, just look at I guess the end product as the problem that you can produce, so to speak.
I think it's so powerful. And like, I love what you said there around, you're talking about like, I am a lettering artist, but you had to dig so much deeper than that. And like, we have this often, people, early on that we're working with, they're like, I am a lettering artist, I'm a graphic designer, I'm an illustrator. And that's great. What do we do with those skills, right? They're kind of the creative abilities. Where does that match up with the needs? So just, love the clarity that's really come out of that for you as well. Cool. We're going to keep moving through the training. What I would love everyone to do is please drop your URL of your Instagram straight into the chat. I'm going to drop mine in. Vera's going to do the same as well. Please don't put your @tag. Please go to a website, open it up and put the URL, because that means that everyone here can follow you. I want to connect with you. Vera wants to connect with you all as well. So pop your, if you're here live on the call, pop it in the chat. And get following some other people here too. As always, a quick hack is always drop the URL, not @tag, because @tags are really hard to click and follow. So let's get everyone connecting. Community is part of growing a creative business as well. And I know it's an important part for Vera as well. And this is part of it, is just getting you all connecting with people on a webinar like this as well. The strong part of actually what we do in our program too is get people connecting, because that is so much part of the journey. And I sort of say is it also just makes the journey more fun when you're connected with other awesome creative people as well. Amazing. Thanks so much for everyone dropping in the links. We'll make sure we follow you all as well if we're not connected already. Cool. Awesome. Next thing we're going to jump into is around what is your special sauce. So I really love this topic when it comes to niches, because it's really about what makes you unique. What is the things that make you unique? Now, the beautiful thing is everyone here is different. Right? Everyone has different things. And yes, there's similarities. Some of you are like from the same place. Some of you maybe are a similar age or had a similar upbringing or speak a similar language even. Also, you're all different because those things are a big mismatch of different things as well, right? So there's no one here that is exactly the same. Those are the beautiful things that you can bring into your focus around your visual creative business. Right. So, I loved hearing from Vera talking about her background and her family and the history there of saying, hey, I'm from a family of people that were interested in literature. Right. So that has driven your area, your niche that you focus on so much. And we all bring different things. And one of the big things we get people to do this really early on in working with us is actually start to understand what are the different things that they have in terms of, yes, their skill set, but also their experiences, their passions, the things they've done. It even comes down to things like maybe their hobbies, maybe their interests, right? And I think about this in my own journey as well. I'm actually a professional fire breather. I don't talk about this very often, but my creative background was that I'm a performer and I ran a creative performance company for 11 years. So one of my passions was actually performing in front of people. Now, that may seem kind of disconnected from what I do now, but that is what has given me so much of my ability to connect, to teach, to interact with people, is just my passion for entertainment, right? So I was like, oh, wow, actually me being a coach and an educator made a lot of sense, because I love being on stage as a performer, and I therefore love being on stage, even if it's not a physical stage right now, it's connecting with you all online. That's part of my special sauce that I've brought into my creative area, my niche. I also love working with and just hanging out with creative people, right? This is my people, because I think the creative people are just so unique, so interesting. They have different views in the world. So actually, I want to hang out with more creative people. I get to do that every single day through our awesome clients we're working with, through webinars, through connecting with people like yourselves too. So, these are some of the things about my background. I would love everyone here to think about, what is it your background that makes you unique? And this is also about what makes what you bring to your work unique as well. Maybe it influences a style, maybe based on your upbringing, your history, your culture. You're bringing these things into your style of what you offer and how you deliver creatively as well. Also, how do you act as a creative business person? How does it affect you being a professional? There's lots of different things that people bring in from their backgrounds professionally, right? So we work with people that have all different types of backgrounds. It's always amazing. I'm talking to people. I was talking to someone the other day who is an accountant. I've talked to people who, yes, they might be graphic designers, illustrators as a day job, but we also talk to people who do all sorts of amazing and interesting things. They bring those skill sets in to their business, to their niche, to their areas of focus. Another little known fact that I don't talk about very often, my first degree was in molecular biotechnology. Everyone's always like, wait, what? Where did that come from? I literally have a genetics degree I did for 4 years. And yes, there was elements of business in that as well. But one of the things that gave me was an analytical approach to business, right? An experimental approach to business. And these are very important things in business. We're going to talk more about this as well. But just really wanted to bring that up because that's part of my special sauce. Wait a minute, fire breather, stilt walker, and apparently has a genetics degree, and then went into the business masters and has run a business for 11 years and done these things. These are what have uniquely combined for me to be here working with you all today, right? And it's not just about your skill set and your passion. It's also about what are the resources you have access to, what are the experiences you've had. Great, beautiful thing is you can always learn more, gain more experience. Even if you're just starting out and you're like, oh, I would love to be doing book covers like Vera does. Well, there's somewhere to start. Vera started somewhere as well and leaned into that too. So I love this topic. Vera, I would love to hear your thoughts around this as well, around, the special sauce and your background and things on that too.
Yeah, well, as I already mentioned, I come from a family of teachers and librarians and scholars who have, definitely influenced me. Probably some comes genetically, right? Like just naturally, but then just like the way you're brought up. For example, if you look at my work, you will see that I am obsessed with florals and I'm obsessed with nature. And where does that come from? Well, my mother was a biology teacher, and I used to draw flowers with her because she was so creative as well. And all her like teaching, I remember her making those teaching slides. I forget what it's called, on see-through like foil when you project onto the wall. And hers were like so beautifully like drawn and stuff like that. And I used to draw those with her when I was a kid. Like I would help her out to be more prepared for teaching lessons and stuff like that. And she taught me how to draw flowers and animals and stuff like that. And now when I look at my work, I'm like, my God, I wish my mom was still alive to see it. But yeah, like that's like her, like she just like came through me. And that's one of the things that, sort of like just it was in me, and I just needed to brought it in. I used to now here's the thing. I used to refuse for a very long time to draw florals on graphic on any kind of lettering designs because everybody does it, right? It's like something that a lot of people like have like in their designs, and I thought if I do it, I'm just going to be like everybody else. But then that is so not true. We are all unique, as you said. We all have our unique way of maybe drawing the same thing. Like maybe we all draw the flower, but we are all going to draw that flower differently. And so that's when I stopped sort of resisting that natural urge and my natural love for nature and for botanical illustrations and for vintage illustrations and stuff like that. And I just sort of like so many different areas of influence that I had from books, from as I said, from nature, from vintage illustration, from just like everything sort of like combined, and I put it all together into something that it's me. And I can proudly say it really is me. So, yeah.
I love it. So, so powerful. And, I think just great, hearing your points of view on this stuff here, so relevant for so many people here. Everyone like do the activity where you're actually listing out all the things that make you unique as a person, right? Your history, your background, your experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, absolutely all of it. Your hobbies, the things you've done in the past, the forgotten hobbies. These are the things that can actually influence what you do creatively and how you do it and who you work with and all of these things here as well. And remember, we're not just talking about what you do, we're talking about who you work with as well. That's actually part of it, is actually, the element of who are the people that you want to be supporting, working with, solving problems for, creating value for as well. The next one we're going to dive into is about knowing your why. And knowing your why can help you figure out where to lean into in terms of your niche. Okay, so knowing your why is basically saying, like, why are you doing this? Like, what is the drive behind you having your own creative business? And one of the amazing, beautiful things that I get to do every single day is I get to talk to amazing creative people from all around the world. And one of the things I often ask people, these are people we end up working with, some people we don't end up working with, some people we are working with. one of the beautiful things I get to ask is, why are you doing this? What's the dream here? What are you excited about? Like, why are we having this conversation? Why are you showing up to this webinar? And it's interesting because I tend to see similar things popping up again and again. And probably the biggest one is that people want to earn money doing what they love. Right? We don't want to work. We want to actually be fulfilled, and we don't want it to feel like work. It may be work, maybe doing things that earn us money, but ultimately we want to be in flow states. We want to create. We want to do interesting things, and they bring us joy, but also they bring us revenue, right? So it's really about finding that match. So a lot of people say, Logan, I just want to draw. I just want to be creative. I want to get my creativity to the world. I want to inspire others. So that's a big why. Also, there's going to be other whys, and some people are a bit scared of sharing them, but there's nothing wrong with having completely selfish whys, right? So wanting flexibility in your life. This is a huge driver for people to start and grow their own business, is that they don't want to show up at an office at a specific time and do what they have to do, what someone else tells them to do. No, you want flexibility and freedom from what you do and how you spend your time through to when you get to work, where you get to work from. One of the beautiful things about many businesses these days is that you can do a lot of stuff remotely, right? So you can go spend some time with family, or you can spend time in another city. You can travel to the US or Europe or Canada or wherever you want, New Zealand, right? And you could even work remotely. Yes, make sure you take a week off and do some travel as well. But these are the beautiful things. Having your own business gives you that. And that's part of the why. We hear a lot of people saying, I want more freedom. I want more flexibility. Also, earning more, right? We know that the reality with jobs is that there's always an earning ceiling. It takes a long time to get there, whatever that ceiling is, and nothing's guaranteed. So one of the things that we hear people sometimes say is, jobs are just more secure than businesses. I do not believe that. We've seen again and again, you can lose that job tomorrow, right? Whereas a business, you have a lot more control over. Yes, things can slow down, but you can always do things to market yourself more, to promote yourself more, to connect with more people. You have so much more control over that. You have a lot more control over your revenue through a business than your revenue through a day job. So that's often part of it as well. People say, I want to have sustainable revenue. I want to earn good money. I want to actually earn more than what I was earning in my day job without burning myself out, without doing 80-hour weeks. And hey, for some of you here that have day jobs, some of them are toxic, right? That's what we hear as well. You're doing stuff that you just don't want to be doing. The dream that you had isn't actually ended up being what you thought it was. So one of the beautiful things with having your own business is you get to direct that. You get to decide how you spend your time and your energy as well. So knowing your why is going to be part of that. And as I said, it does not need to be altruistic for the world. That's great. But also, what are the things that you want? Spending more time with family. That's huge for me, right? The ability that I can come to New Zealand, spend a couple of months here. I've got my own place, like 5 minutes drive from my parents' house. Amazing. I get to hang out with my sister's children most days after I finish work. Incredible. Like, these are the sorts of things that are part of my why, as well as the fact that I love to inspire, educate, help people grow. Awesome. That's totally part of my why too, but also the flexibility, the freedom, those elements there too. So getting clear on your whys are really important. You're also not going to know straight away. You might be figuring it out as you go, what's possible, how this could work, what your why could be. But it's something that you do over time, need to figure out and need to get clear on as well. One of the final things I'll mention there around this topic of knowing your why, one of the beautiful things I love about business is that it's a self-growth journey as well, right? So it's not just about earning more money and your career, that's part of it. It's also about you growing as an individual, as a person. So one of the things that we see is that people that put their energy in is that they grow their confidence, and that affects themselves in lots of different beautiful ways, professionally, but also personally as well. Right. So we've seen people that we've worked with who have had big changes in relationships in very positive ways and how they connect with the people around them. That's nothing to do with their business. That's just about how they're feeling and how they're connecting with the world around them as well. And just being happier. I think that's one of my favorite things when people finish the program and we say, where's your happiness at? And there's an increase in happiness, because that matters. It's, yes, increase in revenue. Absolutely. That's what we want too. But also, we don't want to just earn money for money's sake and have big bank accounts. Well, we also just want to be happier. And that's part of what you doing things that you're fulfilled about, growing your own business, taking this into your own hands is about as well. I love it. Vera, would love to hear your thoughts around this stuff as well when it comes to knowing your why.
That's exactly when you said happiness. Like that was the first thing, like when you mentioned like why. Like seriously, I think happiness, like it just boils down to that. And yes, for me, one of the most important things was to have ability to work from anywhere and to be able to spend more months with my family, because life is short. Let's just put it that way. And being away from all my family, like my husband and I are here alone, in Canada, and we've been here for 22 years. And out of that 20 years, I was told by someone that there's only a certain period of time in the year for a certain amount of time that I can go and see my family, and that was just like not okay with me. Apart from that, as you said, like I think there came time in my career when I sort of outgrown that job. As you said, there was a ceiling and I've reached it, and I just couldn't grow anymore, and it was just like it became stifling, and I just knew that I have to do something about it. So my why definitely came from being able to do the work that I love, being able to do it from anywhere that I want, and also just be happy. That's it. Like just those three things.
It's so
Pretty
important.
much.
And like, once again, these are pretty common things that come up for people as well. There's similar drivers, and these are the things that running and growing your own creative business gets to get you doing, right? Which is amazing too. So absolutely love that. At the same time, there's so much balance needed. Like, it's very easy to build a business that doesn't fulfill these things, right? We've seen people, I occasionally talk to people who are going, hey, help, I built this business. Maybe I'm earning some money, but I'm not happy. I'm not doing what I want. I don't really enjoy the people I work with. That is not success. So we've got to be very aware. There's lots of different ways to build businesses, and some of them can actually lean away from your why and what you're excited about. You're like, I've got this dream. I want to do these things. And suddenly you're like, I'm working 80 hours a week. I'm completely exhausted. I never have holidays. I don't have time to go visit family. I'm earning okay money, but overall I'm unhappy. That is not the definition of success. You just build yourself a new job. So this is where one thing, big thing we talk about is you've got to have the solid foundation within your business to build from, rather than just add floors and it's going to fall over in 2 years' time because you're exhausted and burnt out. And look, we occasionally work with people that have gone far into that place and the building's sort of falling over. It's very hard to repair things. There's always fixable, yes, but it's going to take time to repair that foundation. Actually, making sure we get this stuff right earlier on is so important as well. I love that. Cool. So
If
we're
I
gonna
can just
talk.
add one
Yeah,
more thing.
please do.
Sorry.
Go for it. Yeah.
Just one more thing, like on this topic, I remember when I used to do my old job, and when somebody asked me what do I do and who I do it for, there was a slight embarrassment in my tone of voice when I said it, versus now when I'm so proud to say what I do. That's simply it. Yeah.
It's huge. It's so huge. Like you when you're at whatever it is, when you're at a party or something, is that classic question. What do you do? And I sometimes think people that ask these questions aren't quite expecting the answers that awesome visual creative people give them. They're like, oh well, I do this and this and this, and the passion behind it. Like, that's what you should be doing, is answering with passion and excitement. And yes, we're all not so good at bragging about ourselves sometimes, but actually as you get more confident in what you do and more deeply are connected with what you do as well, it just becomes easier to talk about, because you're like, I do this. There's like, it's a great topic to bring up, Vera. It's the worst feeling when you're at a party and you ask them, what do you do? And they're like, well, I kind of do this. And like, oh, I kind of do this. And you're like, oh, that's devastating. Like, seeing someone who has worked, has studied often to get to where they are, but they're not really excited about what they do anymore. And then that's not living. That's not what it's about. So I think just so important. And hey, there's going to be people here that maybe feel that and feel a little bit called out right now. Changes need to happen, and there's plenty of opportunities to do that. So look, we're going to talk about imperfect action next. And I think this is a really interesting one when it comes to creativity, because when we hear imperfect action, we can kind of sometimes imagine, oh, Logan, like, are you talking about putting rubbish art out into the world that people are going to be like, do you create that? Oh, okay. Like, and I do think there's a balance to be had here. We're not talking about putting rubbish out in the world. We're talking about taking imperfect action anyway. And when I say imperfect, we're saying it's not going to be perfect. I'm sure, Vera, you feel this sometimes, that in your eyes, you look at your work and you're like, oh my God, it's not quite where I want it to get to. And then the clients are going, this is incredible. This is amazing. This is perfect in their eyes. So as the creators, we can often, be critical of our own work. We've got to be aware that, hey, imperfect action is going to be part of it, because the creative process never ends, right? If we take something that we've created, there's always ways to improve it, make it better, and those things there, to the point where it's going to completely fall apart because we've spent so much time and energy on that. So it's finding balance. When it comes down to figuring out your niche and focusing on that as well, there's going to be some imperfect action needed. When you start off focusing on something, you're probably not going to be amazing at it, even in terms of creatively or in terms of how it's delivered or how it's priced or how you promote it. You've got to get out there and start doing it anyway, and you're going to learn as you go. So I think this is a very interesting thing. One of the beautiful things that happens is once you pick an area niche, like for example, Vera, going, okay, I'm going to really focus in on publishing, and I'm going to focus on that, and then you go for it. Now, there might be something in the back of your mind going, like, I don't know if this is quite the perfect area yet. Is this enough? Is this what I should be doing? The beautiful thing that happens is you're going to keep growing and learning anyway. Even if, right, I know for you, Vera, I mean, you're in a very specific niche, and I think you're going to stay with it for a very, very long time. But like, even if you decided in a year's time, you know what, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do murals, right? That's going to be my new area. I know that you'd be able to do it so quickly based on what you've learned through this focus niche here. So those of you that are like questioning whether you're doing the right thing, you may not be, but you're going to learn anyway from just sticking that post in the ground and going, you know what, I'm going to focus on publishing, editorial. I'm going to get into packaging design. I'm going to focus on spot illustration for websites, whatever it is. The beautiful thing about business is that whatever you learn as you go, you can apply if you pivot to something else. So there's no wasted time here. You might say, oh, I just spent the last 6 months focusing on this sort of area, this industry, this niche, this area of target markets. And I've decided I hate it. I don't like working with these people. This is what a disaster. What a waste of 6 months. I just don't believe that from what we've seen. No, you can take those learnings and apply them over here rather than spending 6 months going, I don't know, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that, but I'm not sure. I need to. You've got to take that imperfect action to have a go at it anyway, learn as you go, and just be aware that things are going to change, things are going to pivot. That's part of the learning journey too. We'd love your thoughts on that one, Vera, and I think just such a good topic around imperfect action for creatives.
Absolutely. When you said about like changing your direction, changing your niche, well, before I started doing this, guess what I was doing? I was actually doing paper art because I got into this idea, of sort of niching down into creating lettering out of paper, and it was amazing and it was great and I enjoyed it. And that ride like was for 2 years, but after 2 years, like my business wasn't growing. I was fulfilled creatively, but I wasn't solving anybody's problem with this. So I decided, okay, especially because that was before I decided to go full time. So I thought to myself, if I was going to do this seriously full time, obviously this is not the niche that is going to get me where I want to go. But that doesn't mean that I've wasted 2 years, not at all. Because today, one of the best compliments that I get from people is that my work is so different from others because they can see so many layers of the work that I do. Like there's just so many layers. Well, guess where that I got that from? I got that from layering paper. Literally. So the same way I used to layer paper to get the 3D art, from paper, now I do that with my digital illustration to get the depth of it and to get the richness. And so there's no such thing as wasting time and and if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. Like apply, like take what you've learned and apply it to the new direction. And so it's really important to give it a shot, like where your passions are currently, give it a shot, see where it goes. It may work out, absolutely, because once I put all my passion into what I do right now, it worked out because it finally clicked, everything clicked. But until then, believe me, I was a scientist. I tried so many different things. But at the end, like, I just took whatever I needed to take from those experiences and put it into this. And when I started this, it definitely wasn't a perfect action, right? I wasn't like just overnight I decided, okay, I'm just gonna draw paper art. Like, it sort of happened gradually, as I was like sort of like diving into this and taking a lot of imperfect actions in the meantime to attract the right type of client. And
I
but
love it.
it's also like, I know us creatives have this like sort of perfectionism in us engraved, and we need to like, that's something that I had to just shred. Even today I tend to do that with some other areas of my work. For example, I'm working on a course, and there's so many things that I'm now thinking about, overthinking, and my god, the thing that's right now in my head the most: do it faster, somebody might just beat you to it. So you gotta, it just has to be, um, even if it's not perfect, there's always time to perfect it later on. But that first draft, just take it out, like put it out there and see how it goes. And that goes for everything. Whatever you do, just do it and put it out there.
It's huge, and I think part of this here is just the ability to do things faster and learn faster, right? That's part of what we're talking about here. The final point I'm going to share around the webinar today is around being a scientist. Sometimes say being a bit of a mad scientist. That's part of being a business person as well, and being a creative too. So we're just going to talk to that just before we do. If you do have a question, we'll see if we can cover a bunch of questions. Pop it in the chat. As I said, we won't be able to get through them all, but we'll do our best to get through some of them. And also, just as we go into that final point here, I'm going to drop that survey link again as well. We'd love everyone who's here to pop it open. Those of you watching recording, make sure you check it. It'll be in the notes there. You'll see it there too. We'd love you to check that out, do the survey. And as I said, we'll pick people in the next week around that to get on some calls with me, as well as calls with Paul from my team. Amazing. Cool. So this final point here, being a scientist, being a mad scientist, like, that is part of being a creative. It's like testing, trying, experimentation. It's the same in business as well. And it's the same with the stuff around focusing on your niche. Sometimes you've got to go, okay, well, this is an experiment. I'm going to focus on this area here. It may or may not be the right answer, but I'm going to learn as I go, and I'm going to test, and I'm going to try things. So, it's something that we talk a lot about in our programs is being a scientist. And I sort of laugh sometimes, saying, well, I am a scientist. I studied science for 4 years, which is kind of crazy. I wore the lab coat and everything. That was all part of it. So there we go. But, an important part of growing your business is testing things out, trying different strategies. And things aren't always just going to work straight away. This is going to be part of it. Testing, trying, and pivoting. That didn't work. What a failed experiment. It's been, and once again, Vera mentioned, well, maybe there was a failed experiment for 2 years. No, but you took so much of what you learned during that 2 years into what you do now, and you are way beyond with where you're at now because of that journey, right? We're all kind of where we're meant to be, and that includes all of the experiences we've been through, the good, the bad, the ugly, those things, the challenging, but actually it helps us bring us to who we are and how we can deliver. So love that. Just before we jump to questions, would love any thoughts on that, Vera, just as we move on around being a mad scientist.
Yes. Well, that is something that I used to be so afraid of, to experiment, and the fear of failure. Oh God. Like, but then with working with you on the program, and you kind of like just taught me to literally be a scientist, like, and I love the Big Bang Theory. I don't know if anybody watches the Big Bang Theory, and that show is like so cool because they're all scientists, and I love the way they look at failed experiments, and I'm like, that's exactly what we need to do. Like, they just kind of approach it, okay, you tried, it didn't work, or somebody like disproved your theory or whatever. Like, it's just the same thing. Like, let's just try it, see how it goes, and then there's always learning from it, and that's the most important thing. I think it's like no reason to fear the failure, because every failure really is just another step towards the success. Let's put it that way. And yeah, that's something that I am much better at these days. Like, just try it out, see how it goes. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, there's something to be learned from, and then move on.
I love it.
No regret.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I think you're right there, is that like it's a shift that needs to happen in people's minds as well, because perfection is the ultimate beauty of what we want to do, right? And it's like, no, that's what I'm aiming for, Logan. The reality is, to get there needs to be experiments, there needs to be broken things, there needs to be failures to actually get to the things that are even better. So we can use this analogy in lots of places, within our lives as well, which is interesting. We've got some questions, so we're going to dive into this first one here. I love this question. How do you niche when you're a multi-potentialite? I think there can be multiple niches per service, per product. How would you tackle such a thing? This is an amazing question. And I would say that, like, most creative people would classify them as this, as a multi-potentialite. Like, there's so many different things, interests, passions. As part of being a creative person is that there's lots of things that you are interested in. And kind of the last thing we want to do is like narrow down to one thing. Like, how that sounds pretty boring. Well, what we've got to remember is several things. One of them is, we're not talking about doing just one thing, right? We're talking about how you focus your time and energy. And my recommendation is, yes, make it multiple things, but don't make it 20. Make it like 3 to 5. So some we often talk about 3 to 5 is a good number. And if we're talking about in terms of what you're doing in terms of your products and services, have 3 areas of offering. Right now, it could be more, it could be less. But often people say, "Well, I've got this, and I could do this, and I could do this." You know, well, how are you going to have time and energy to focus on all the things? There's this beautiful saying in this industry where you say, "Look, you can do everything. You can do all of these things. You probably just can't do them all right now." So actually, Vera herself, you can do lots of different things. At the moment, this is an area that you're focusing on. Now, at the same time, as you mentioned, you're not just doing book covers. There's actually a whole world of stuff that you can do. And this is often about taking that creative energy and passion and putting it in and going, hey, there's a lot in this area. Right. So even for example, muralists, right? We work with quite a few muralists as well. And you could say that's one area. No, within murals, there are so many different things that you can do. There's different types of clients you can work with. There's different locations. There's also different types of murals, whether that's sizes or format, or we've even got people who have done vinyl murals where they design it and get it printed. We've got people who do window signage. That's technically a type of mural as well, in a way. So there's lots of different things that you can do within a niche as well. At the same time, yes, once you get more stability in your business and you're more focused and you've got that revenues coming in reliable and you're full time on this, you can do more, right? You can focus on other areas. And already we're hearing from Vera saying, hey, I'm playing around with some education stuff. I'm working on some courses. Great. Like, that is an area of passion as someone who wants to do lots of different things. But you know that your bread and butter and your core is publishing industry, but you're starting to play around with some different things. So I think just such a good question there. Within that one. Did you want to add anything to that one there, Vera, just before we jump into the next question?
No, pretty much. Yoka and I have actually, she had a podcast talking about this, and I was on that podcast talking about the same thing. And I think everybody is a multi-potentialite, and we all have many, many different areas of interest, but niching does not mean giving up those interests. It just means focusing. That's it. Like, it's just like focusing on that area and then applying that area to different, as you said, like even in the publishing world, there's so many things that I've done. Like, I've done products, I've done blankets, I've done like t-shirts, windows, like it's just so many things. But what they have in common is things around books, book boats, and stuff like that. So yeah, just I think it's doable.
It's so interesting because I think often there's a resistance to the idea of focus and niching, but actually when we look at the realities of, well, what does this actually mean? Well, as you said, there's tons of opportunities even within a niche, right? And you're also going to be doing more things longer term as well. The next question we've got there, I think it's quite an interesting one. How do creative people decide which niche is better to put as the thing that you do, like the basic thing that you do? And I think this question is kind of talking about more of like the marketing and how you promote yourself, what you call yourself. And yeah, there's lots of different ways to do this. You could take a direction of, hey, I am a lettering artist, I am an illustrator, I'm a graphic designer. They're kind of the high level. We still often want to then be clear about what you can do within that, right? Because this is what is a classic thing. I'm a creative person. Whatever you need, I can do it. right? Yeah, that's what the message you can put out to the world. I'm a creative person. If you like what I do, well, let me know what you want me to do. Unfortunately, that's not the way that people think in terms of our clients. They have a specific need and they have a specific thing. So they need to see examples. So it's not just necessarily about how you describe yourself. Yes, it can be. Hey, I am an illustrator who specializes in XYZ. I work with these types of clients. It's also then displaying the examples, right? The examples of the work. And that's where having examples of client work, personal projects, even if you don't have client work yet, actually, what could you do? Could you be doing mock-ups? Another area when people get into, I've talked a bit about murals. When people get into this, there's a whole area you can do around mural mock-ups. You don't need to go and paint a wall to get an example of a mural. You can do all sorts of amazing things with technology around how you can mock things up as well. Or you can also go and paint a wall. So, this is really, really interesting. When you think about your specific area, even if you're that multi-potential and you want to do all the different things, there's just not enough room on like an Instagram profile to write all of those things. So then it is going, what are the core things? And maybe it is mentioning 3 things. I do X, Y, Z. But then in your profile or on your website, examples, work in action, your creativity being used as well. So I think just a very, very powerful one. We probably have time for one more question here. So we're just going to jump into a question there. Having mock-ups in your portfolio, doing mock-ups if you haven't got clients yet, mock-ups in your portfolio. We're going to dive into that because I think that's a really, really good area to talk about. Yeah, it's kind of one of the hardest things when you start out or when you get into a new industry, new area, is you're like, I don't have examples. Now, often you don't need that many examples to get a client. You do not need 50 examples of the work. You kind of just need one. Now, yes, more than one is better, right? We totally get that. But all we're trying to do here is show a client, a potential client, I can do what you need. Okay, I can do what you need. So that may look like digital mock-ups and actually being clear around your process and how this is going to work and having a timeline and going, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what that process looks like. Because that's what it's about. It's not the fact that they need 20 examples of you in action. They just need to trust and believe you that you are going to deliver the thing. So this is where sometimes what people do is they do personal projects. So yes, even if you have not been commissioned to do a book cover, well, you can mock up your own book cover for a fictional book that you've come up with in your head. Like you are allowed to do that as fun personal projects. And you don't need to do that for the next 12 months. You probably just need a couple. And yes, you can work on more over time. Just as we start to wrap up, we'd love your thoughts around this as well, Vera, because I know this is something that leaning into new industries can be really hard for people too.
Yes. Well, you see this here? That is an old collection that I owned since I was like maybe 15, 16, I don't know, of my favorite author, Herman Hesse. And it was so worn out and it was so ugly and old. And I just decided to redesign the covers for it. And I made the bounding box. And that is the project that I put on the internet. And I got my first book cover deal from that. So literally, not only that I just wanted my favorite author to get the covers that it deserves, because those were so mundane and plain and not really special. And I also knew that I wanted to get into the publishing industry. So I put those two together. And that was one of the passion projects that, got me my first job in the publishing industry with a huge client. It was the Penguin Random House. So it wasn't the small one. But it's important to do to do so many passion projects that you love, that you really have passion for, and then wrap it up in a nice, either a digital mock-up or do something like real, like you just do a real thing. Like I'm sure that there are so many things that you can actually make yourself and just put it out there and make sure that, it's one of the things that I want to add to this is there are ways to market your projects. For example, for this, I reached out to a Spine magazine and I asked to be featured, and they actually asked me to write an article about how I redesigned this. And that's where I was seen by Penguin Random House. So just make sure that you also market your projects when you make them.
I love it. So powerful. And just, love having the real life examples in play here as well. We are going to wrap up for today, team. Honestly, it's just been so delightful connecting with you all here today, working with you all on this training, and obviously reconnecting with Vera too. The key here is that this stuff is not always easy when we talk about niching down, but we've talked a lot about experimentation, giving things a go, trying things out, mocking things up. And actually, there's plenty of opportunities in all of these industries we're talking about. So, this is one of the things I love about creative industry right now. There is so many opportunities and so many opportunities for a ton of people to get involved. There's still plenty of space as well. So, look, lovely having everyone here today. It's been an awesome webinar, hasn't it, Vera? It's been lots of fun.
Yes. It was amazing. I loved talking to you, and I loved seeing everybody. And I really hope we helped you, because I know this topic can be really tricky. And you know what? Just be creative with your business, just like you would be creative with your work.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And we've already got some takeaways being fired into the chat there. So please do just add into the chat if everyone can put one takeaway from today. It's always good to see and help people condense the ideas and different things. So pop something in the chat just as we come to wrap up. As I already mentioned, we do have that survey. So make sure that you're filling in that survey. We'd love to hear what you're up to, where you're at. And we'll get on some calls with people as well, share some creative business tips, help you out. And we can talk more about the topic around niching as well, whether that's with myself or Paul from my team. So just would love to connect with more of you as well. I'm sure we'll all be DMing and chatting on Instagram and all those good things as well. Loving seeing what's popping into the chat here as well. Definitely takeaway, no time is wasted if you learn from it. I think that is a huge one. That is huge when we start to think about the journey that we're on. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be hard stuff. Going to be a bit uncomfortable at times, but it's about growing and learning from all of those opportunities and also the challenges as well. Thanks for the great insight. Definitely helped to, what to do and existential panic. Absolutely, that all creative feel for sure. Don't be afraid to take that imperfect action. Love the chat, all those good things. Amazing. Hey, we're going to wrap things up there. Have a lovely rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. Take care, everyone, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you, everyone. Ciao. Have a good day.